Hello, class, and welcome back to part two of my responses. My response video, if you would, kind of like a lecture. This is exactly like what we do in class if we went around the room and everybody said their paper topic. We discuss what some possible fictional sources could be and how you could better start structuring that essay as well. So, to review, right, we start with step one. On page 117, you pick a term. What is abstract about the term? Right? As I suggested, everyone, right, should consult with the dictionary definition, right? That should be in your intro paragraph. So your intro paragraph, right, should have background on your issue, which is your term. It should answer the question at issue, right? What is abstract about it? So start with the definition of the term, right? And then expand upon that, right? We all agree on certain aspects of the definition. What do we not agree on? Right? We all agree that you can change your identity, but how can one change one's identity logically versus illogically? What are the causes and effects of that? So everyone should include the dictionary definition, which the term for that is denotation, term from the book. You should look at any emotional associations, why it's abstract, the connotations, term from the book, any euphemisms, term from the book, right? Look at worldviews, term from the book. You can bring in an anecdote with your own personal experiences or what you've observed. You might start with a specific example. So, ways to provide background information in this essay: dictionary definition, denotation, emotional associations of the word, connotation, look at slangs, look at more formal definitions, things of that nature. Euphemisms, obfuscations, worldviews. Bring in a possible anecdote, invoking your ethos. Bring in your feelings, pathos. All terms from our Writing Logically, Thinking Critically. Second way that you can provide background is information on your fictional author, your fictional source author. So let's say you were writing about Hamlet and Macbeth. You might bring in some information about Shakespeare. You could give a general plot synopsis. So that covers the 5 to 7 sentences minimum of background for your intro. Now your thesis needs to answer the question: what do we learn about your issue by analyzing your fiction? What do we learn about identity by analyzing Hamlet and Macbeth, for those of you that are writing about Hamlet and Macbeth? And last, so background, thesis, and answer that question, and now support. Remember, your proposal was kind of a draft for your intro. So after you present the thesis, readers can better understand that changes in identity have a negative effect on the characters and the characters in the play when fueled by hubris and illogical emotions. There's your thesis, support. By focusing on plot, character, style, and figures of speech in particular, readers can better understand how Hamlet and Macbeth's illogical behaviors, motivations, and development leads to their tragic downfall. There's your intro. Okay? So back to the terms that we chose, right? I've got my list here. Now, some of you have yet to submit a proposal or a source list. That's fine. It is what it is. Hopefully this video will help you better move towards that. And you can send that sooner than later. I'll be giving responses online. And most of my responses, as I said in the earlier video, are dealing with invoking critical thinking strategies like logos, Occam's razor, Rogerian strategy, making concessions, making refutations, and most importantly, philosophical counseling on page 60. Using those strategies, analyzing the character's use of those strategies or lack of using those strategies. And when characters make illogical decisions, usually their behaviors are fueled by irrational emotions, hubris, hidden assumptions, right? These are all seen in both Hamlet and Macbeth. And I think that we could use any of the readings we've looked at so far, any of the poems, plays, or stories, just like you have the freedom to look at any poems, plays, or stories you want, to focus on characters. I think the key for this paper is characters, and everybody should be looking at motivations, actions, and development, which are the 3 elements of character this book tells you to focus on. As we know, it's all about writing about literature. So, that being said, what were some of the other terms? Some people picked terms that were not on the list, and what I best did is tried to steer them towards terms that are on the list. So, somebody picked the term progression, I noticed in the discussions. Um, Fix that, turn that into progress. Normally, progress is a good thing, but if people make illogical decisions to achieve progress and it has disastrous effects on the characters and society, progress isn't necessarily such a good thing. Does Hamlet make progress after he has the proof? Or does he make progress in getting his proof that Claudius is guilty? Yeah. But what does he do with that? He lets his hubris fill his illogical decisions as he kills Polonius, he switches the letters from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and 7 people have to die before he finally gets his quote unquote revenge on Claudius. So progress, normally considered a good thing, but from an abstract perspective, right, how can it be a bad thing? And just like most of these terms, when they become a negative, especially when it's a character trait, the direct result of the character's illogical motives, actions, and development, usually fueled by irrational emotions rather than logos, hubris rather than logos. Art, right? We all agree on the definition of art, or do we? Whatever aspect of art you wanted to focus on, art is a good one because once you kind of extend that definition, now you can pick any sort of fiction as an example to prove that that is art. So, whatever the criteria are that you determine makes something a work of art, you would then point out how you've extended the definition of art to include the criteria that you find in those fictional sources. Someone mentioned something about marriage. Although marriage isn't on the list, I said that's okay, right? And just tailor it more on female identity or LGBTQIA identity. Again, almost anything could be tailored into identity or in some ways shaped into a paper on identity. It's a very abstract term. Let's call it what it is. So we got progress, marriage, art, um, elite. Normally, right, if someone's elite, that means really good. That means the best. So are these characters who are part of the elite members of society acting logically and acting in the best interests of society? When you look at the behaviors of these characters, I think that a lot of times their hubris fuels their behavior and their disdain for laws and their disdain for logic, even though they're quote unquote elite. Um, so I think that's definitely an abstract word that you could go beyond the traditional definition of. Addiction, normally considered negative, normally something with regard to substances. But when you look the dictionary definition of addiction up, and again, start with dictionary.com. You can use Google's definitions and so on and so forth. You can use the Oxford English Dictionary. When you go to the library database and you click on the source list alphabetically, click on O for Oxford English Dictionary. But I like dictionary.com. I think that's a good starting place. And when it talks about addiction, if I'm not mistaken, it mentions logical reasoning in the dictionary. Um, and again, what we don't disagree on substance abuse addiction. So you're not going to write about that. It's not a science class. What we do disagree on in some ways in how addictions become abstract is, can people be addicted to behaviors or emotions? I think so. And I think that the Macbeths are an example of codependence. Um, so again, you could look at someone's being addicted to another person's approval, which is essentially Macbeth. You could look at characters who may be addicted to power. Claudius literally says, "I don't want to give up being powerful." When he has that moment in when he's confessing, if you would, and trying to pray. If any of you are writing about Claudius and Hamlet, that's a great moment in the play to consider. So addiction normally considered a negative thing related to substances. Um, the essay in the book, Miss G, right, talks about how her addiction to the internet is actually a positive thing. And I think for this essay, if you did a character analysis, you'd look at more at psychological addictions of characters, and you could make a point about how an addiction isn't just a physical dependency on substances. One could be psychologically addicted to a person's approval or power, or is Hamlet addicted to his revenge or addicted to justice, things of that nature. And last but not least, courage. Now, courage normally was one of the terms chosen. It's normally considered a positive character trait, but when characters act illogically due to courage, right, it becomes more abstract. Of course, Macbeth is courageous when he kills Duncan. It takes bravery, but it's not logical courage. It's not logical bravery. We notice when he's on the battlefield in the beginning of the play and he's killing people, that's his job. He's doing it logically. When he kills Duncan, even he recognizes that he has no logical reason to do it. So characters sometimes may act courageously but illogically. And when illogical courage fuels that behavior, it's not necessarily a positive trait, therefore, it becomes more abstract. So that kind of covers step one when you understand the abstractness of the term. Step two says, in the process of defining your term, arrive at a significant point and support your position. That's what your thesis is going to do. Your supporting sentence in your intro lists out the elements of fiction to support, right? And now use your definition as a springboard for a complete written argument. So think of the term, the issue, as the theme of this essay. Okay, so now what's the point you want to make about that by analyzing literature? Well, turn to page 118 and follow the guidelines on step two. You should start with the dictionary definition. So everybody lists that definition in the intro, put the definition in quotes, and then follow with a parenthetical citation of the title of the web page. You're probably going to get it online, so it's just the word in quotes, identity, a comma inside the quotation marks, and then the definition number, DEF period 2, DEF period 3. So bullet 1 on 118, right? Look at the denotation, right? Then focus on connotations and examples. Bullet 2, the function or purpose of the term, right? Euphemisms, obfuscations, worldviews, pathos, right? Bullet 4, explore the etymology. I think everyone should consult with the Oxford English Dictionary. Now, you don't necessarily have to put that definition in the intro, but it might be something to think about in your body paragraphs. Again, it comes back to the idea of the dialectic, explain what it is not, use Rogerian strategy with refutation and concessions, think about it from the perspective of hidden assumptions and Occam's razor, draw analogies, make comparisons, look at causes and effects. Again, you have a lot of options in this essay, but essentially think of your issue as your theme that you're going to focus on as you analyze literature. And I think that a character analysis is something that most, if not all of you, will be focusing on. Remember, your choice, as many fictional sources as you want, but you got to have at least 4 secondary sources and make sure you do a précis on each of those sources. All right, I've rambled long enough. As always, call or message if you have any questions. Stay tuned, more to come.